It's also a hospital where many seek relief in both realms of life. So let us breathe in and out deeply and feel the loving care of God for us. Dear Mother, Father God, in this very special night, we're close to the celebration of the coming to the Messiah of the earth, Jesus Christ. We're allowed to understand more about Him, His coming, the reasons why you've prepared that special incarnation for us. We would like to be permeable to the immortal teaching due to the gravity of life. And we are grateful for the concession of vitality and all types of resources so we could gather here together tonight, feeling your loving embrace. We would like these moments to be beneficial to all the ones who have their names in the book of prayer or who are watching over the internet as well. May we be one with you today and always. May we stay then under your guidance and protection as you grant us the permission to begin our meeting, and so be it. So our children will have a special session. Miss Carol and Miss Paloma will be helping us. So let us help the teachers by facilitating their work and enjoying it, okay? Wow, they're tall. Yeah, no, yeah, I think. Last week we had a treat when Sergio Schickler was here with us, and he shared with us a few videos so touching about Jesus, and he said, "You go there," and we did. So this picture, and we can see the mentioning here, it's from the Mormon church, so beautiful videos. So if you want to watch videos about the passages of Jesus, just go to churchofjesuschrist.org. It's so beautifully done. The choice of the actors, the voice and everything, it's so, I mean, close to what we think it is. Of course, we're not there yet, but you can almost feel. So we're talking about Jesus. Of course we're talking about Jesus. And it's not simply a religious thing. It's a universal event. One time, people asked Chico Xavier, they asked him about the relevance of our planet and the governance of the planet. So then he asked Mentor Emmanuel to give him some explanation about it. So he kind of put him into a trance, and he, as we say in Spiritism, emancipated, as if he could see a screen, nowadays like a video. And he could see that. And I'll try to summarize it because it's more complicated than this. But the way we're trying to translate it for the Spiritist magazine so we can study the passage. But the beauty of it all is that it shows that Emmanuel was showing that the solar system belonging to this galaxy and the galaxies that each and another galaxy that were interconnected. And he was explaining, giving the names, and Chico Xavier said, he gave me name of this galaxy which I can't remember, and that galaxy which I can't remember. And then he had a headache, and he was looking forward to coming back to his bed and drinking some coffee. But for sure, there is order in the universe. And Jesus for us is much more than a religious figure or another prophet. In Spiritism, the man who came and consoled many hearts, who embraced people that were not embraceable at the time, that were sick, despised, ostracized, but were looking forward to finding consolation, relief. He was the one that broke all the protocols. So what is the Spiritist view of Jesus? Because the Jesus we see is different. Why does it matter to us? Does it matter who is the owner of your company? Does it matter wherever you're working, who is the company and their philosophy? Why does it matter? Does it make a difference? Like if you're working at a university, does it matter to know who the dean of the school that you're working in is? Does it matter who the president of the university is? It does, because they have a vision, and if you don't fulfill the vision, you're out. Well, that's not the reason why we're going to study about Jesus. But the governance of the planet is more serious than that, because it's not a whim of Jesus to say, I have a plan, I have a vision. He has a short and long-term goal for the planet, but his plan is divine. Knowing who he really is and why he was assigned to this makes us understand more the plan, the vision, the program under which we are to fulfill our own duties. We think we're on our own, thinking, what is my plan? What is God's plan? And then I'll figure out my plan. So studying about this will make us understand more where we fit in. Will redirect and reframe our lives. Because literally, if we don't fit in, we will be out. Not because he's going to expel us, because we won't fit in. We'll be invited to another school in the universe. We'll be invited to another place. He gives us tips and hints in so many ways, and Spiritism comes now and reveals what he couldn't have said. If we go to the root word in the dictionary, the etymology of the word, Christ, Old English Christ, and then Christus in Latin, Greek Christos, which means at the end of the day an ideal type of humanity. Surprising, huh? An ideal type of humanity. Many people think Jesus came to show us how to be an angel, but angels don't incarnate. So, X that out. Relief, huh? Whew. Ooh, it's not to be an angel, it's much easier than that. Many people claim the bar is too high. Not quite, because we're being taught to be humans. So what are we now? Well, according to material science, we're animals. According to Spiritism, we are biologically close to the animal life, spiritually gravitating to being humans. We're human beings that need to flourish to its best. And the best of humans, ta-da. Wow, it's beautiful, isn't it? But we're still half human, half animal. We have impulses and instincts of the previous kingdom and dreams of the one we are to blossom. But we are already in the shape and form to push us towards it. So what is this ideal humankind? If we borrow a little bit the teachings of psychoanalysis, Carl Gustav Jung, genius in his understanding of the mind, explains to us that the ideal human mind is a beautiful balance of the masculine and the feminine. Something that we're yet to see, in which we have this young animus masculine balanced with the yin anima feminine. The masculine, amongst many other facets, it's about initiative, courage, objectivity, determination, right? That's the masculine in us, irrespective of the body we're using. When we plan and organize, etc., it's all about the masculine. And then there is the feminine, precious as well. It's about intuition, capacity of love, spiritual wisdom, compassion, understanding. We need both. And that's why we reincarnate in the body of a man and of a woman to blossom in those. Right now on earth, many people are very confused. They don't know what it is to be a man or to be a woman. It's very confused. We're not talking about sexual orientation. We're talking about roles. We're so lost. Then we're like, who am I? And then women become mothers and they're like, I don't have to do more just because of I'm a mother. You do more. You give of your body, so of course you do more. Of course we're called to do more. Biologically, viscerally, we do more. Can't fight against nature. It's the order of things. Because that feminine needs to be boosted. It is on us not to be submissive. That's not to be feminine. But to be loving and understanding and to learn how to renounce. It may vary in the relationships, but there are things that are clear. So the first thing when a child is born, we should teach is, if God gave you the body of a man or of a woman, of a boy or a girl, you need to cherish it. Why you were given that? There is the first duty of ours in a reincarnation, to allow that to blossom. Of course, if you're in the body of a woman, the writing's on the wall. Boost your feminine. You need it in this life. That doesn't mean we're going to dress up in pink. That doesn't mean we're not going to work outside of our homes. That doesn't mean we're not going to be determined and courageous and take initiative and be objective. That means we need to boost understanding, compassion, resignation, intuition, and many other things. It's such a broad concept. When you're born in the body of a boy, of a male, of a man, then it's saying boost your determination, boost your objectivity. That doesn't mean we are not going to be understanding and loving, but in that particular life, we're being asked to push that as well. Not in an imbalanced way, but there are reasons why. To respect each other, the same rights. The roles are different. In the Spirit's book, it says law of equality. When it talks about it, it says same rights, but different roles. But we're lost. Jesus comes. And ahead of everybody on earth, he teaches both. He can teach both a woman and a man how to be. For example, if you go and teach and observe Jesus masculine, when in John chapter 2, verses 13 to 25, it describes the passage in which Jesus enters the temple and see the merchants in the temple, and he expels the merchants. Say, no, you can't do this. That's the masculine. We need it. We need to put boundaries. We need to put order. That's a duty of the masculine. But on the other hand, unlike they've seen at the time, and still very new to date, in this passage, Luke chapter 18, verses 15 to 17, the disciples come and say, Master, Master, the children, they are showing away the children. Many people do it to date. We have adult meetings and we show away the children. Not for our organization here. For example, if we didn't have the teachings here of Spiritism for children, children are welcome here to be seated in this. We should encourage them to learn to sit and wait. They are welcome. Babies, oh, but they're crying. Well, we need to be supportive of the parents. Oh, but they don't sit still. That's part of nature. It's okay, but they need to stay here. And Jesus said, let the children come to me. He broke the protocol of the time. To date, he would still break it. I remember a scientist telling me, I was visiting New York. We were in a meeting at the United Nations. And he said, we're going to have dinner, Vanessa. And Virginia, Carlos and I were there. But only you come. I said, okay, so I'm not going to come. My daughter can sit still and not bother. So if you don't want her there, I won't come till dinner. Period. And that was not a meeting per se, it was just dinner. To date, we can see how this feminine of Jesus that is all embracing, compassionate, all encompassing, is still far from what we do on earth. In our workplaces, children are not welcome at all. At all. When you bring a baby to visit, it's like that one day and don't bring a second day. And if you do, it may be in the news, right? Especially if you breastfeed. So there is no accommodation for it all. And Jesus, without being a woman, without being a father, and quote unquote, we say it, he taught everyone so strongly that to date we can still hear him saying, let the children come. Says if we're here and the children come, let the children come. It's like, and talk to him. Yeah, talk to him too. And he would hug. If you read the book Good News, we have some Portuguese versions of the book here. You can read the English ones only online at Kardec Radio, the YouTube, each and every chapter. And you can hear the very things of Humberto de Campos. He would hug, he would caress, he would, be very compassionate in his approach to people. He was not the type of master that many people portray, being distant. Sometimes I watch the Dalai Lama talking to teenagers online, and he's very funny and youthful. And I can only imagine how Jesus was, because when you watch the Dalai Lama, it resembles what Jesus used to do, being welcoming to the younger generations. So at the end of the day, in the book Genesis, Kardec explains to us that Jesus, by nature, was a superior spirit. These are Kardec's words. Without prejudging anything of the nature of Christ, let us consider him as nothing other than a superior spirit, one of those of the highest order. For many people of Christian religions, it's an insult because they think Jesus was God. For us, he's a representative of the divine will, but not God. He was not God himself. This is in the book Genesis by Kardec, in the chapter that talks about miracles, and he has an introduction about Jesus. He was not God himself, but an ambassador of God, a divine Messiah. That makes a difference. Because it's very confusing to think he's the Son and the Father and with all the respect, I don't get it. Very confusing. It becomes very dogmatic. In Spiritism, we don't cherish dogmas. We cherish the reasoning. And it makes more sense when you think that Jesus is a child of God like us. But he evolved and is ahead of us by billions of years. Billions. When the earth was created, he was already perfect, pure. Because he helped create the planet. He was one of the architects and engineers of the committee. The main one, but he was one of them. It's in the book On the Way to the Light by Emmanuel, first paragraphs. So when we see him, he did this whole course of evolution, and now he comes and says, you can do it too. Now it's easier to believe. But if he's God, I cannot do what God does, right? We can't. I can't. We are co-creators, but not the creator. So it's more coherent. It's more rational. It's more tangible. Jesus as a man says in the Kardec in the book Genesis chapter 14, item 9, as the man, the human, he had the organization of organized beings, meaning he didn't have a body different than ours. Because some people claim his body must have been different. Body just like ours. His superiority over man was only of spiritual nature, which absolutely controlled matter, which is new to us. That element is new. You and I are supposed to ace at being good managers of the physical body. Okay, that's the other thing we need to teach our children. First, get to know that your body is your first and last asset. The only one that you will respond, and nobody else. You're responsible. You need to care for it. Our goal is one day to be so good at controlling ourselves that we won't get sick anymore. Jesus never got sick. To know that you can go through winter and not get a cold, and being around people who are sick and not getting sick, it's a dream. But that's something to be achieved. And just to see that we're not crazy here, that this is a universal thought. Prentice Mulford, an American man born in Long Island, who traveled to the West Coast at the gold rush time. After going through that material experience, he became very spiritual and the forerunner of this spiritual, the New Age movement. He was one of the people that came way before everybody said it all. He has books that were written. One of them, Thoughts Are Things. Fascinating, I would say. If you have time during Christmas time, read that book. Thoughts Are Things. Because there is something that is extraordinary. He says, if you aim at being youthful, one day we won't age. See? Look at Divaldo Franco. He's 92, and the other day he was in Egypt. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, 92? Visiting the pyramids. I'm like, oh gosh. He's really mastering the command of his body. But then we go and think, oh, I'm getting so old. And then you tell, and the cells say, okay, boom, decay. And right? Like, oh, I'm not as strong and youthful. And the body says, okay, perform, everything goes down. But we're the ones saying, I'm old. But Vanessa, come on. But the mind is everything. Emmanuel says, thought is life. You can see, and now even science says that when you talk about the DNA, the telomeres, the end cap of it all, if you are compassionate, you can extend it, and that's correlated to longevity. Elizabeth Blackburn, who became a Nobel Prize, she was the one that investigated it. It's scientific. So really, if we boost our virtues, we can boost our longevity. So we should tell otherwise and believe in the reverse. I'm more experienced, much wiser, less silly, in making better choices, right? Because now we eat less French fries, less hot dogs, hopefully, less Coca-Cola, etc. So wiser should be healthier in so many ways. But we need to understand the biology to come around it, and science is helping us. In Jupiter, the lifespan is like 400-500 years. So it tends, as we evolve, to expand our reincarnations, because reincarnation is so precious. Ours still so short. When you realize you are living, right, you're like, oh my gosh, now that I was like the owner of my life, people say retired, and I can do whatever I like, out of the game begins another one. So we need to learn how to manage our lives in a different way to push it. And we're pushing. Now we're going to 100. Several people this week told me, oh, my grandmother is 103. The author of that book is 101. And I'm like, whoa. So we're expanding it to maximize the gain of reincarnation. So André Louis says that we are co-creators at minor level, and our goal is to be good commanders of the spiritual body, the perispirit, and the physical body. The master and commander of the cells. That's the goal for us according to God. Because if we do it, everything else just unfolds. Because to do it, to keep it balanced, we really need to expand our capacity of love. He absolutely controlled matter. And his spiritual body, the perispirit, which was formed of the most refined of earthly fluids. We can't go into details nowadays, but in the Genesis book, in the previous chapter, 13th, it talks about how we form our spiritual body. Andre Lewis goes deeper and expands that knowledge by talking about how it takes for us 1.5 billion years to go from the moment we're created to become humans. Meaning, to create a spiritual body, a perispirit, throughout those 1.5 billion years at human level. It's like crafting, molding. Literally, we're molding abilities, skills, capacity. Jesus, check, master on this. Never got sick, could do it all. He could control his hunger. Fantastic. In the book Boa Nova, it shows that they were traveling by foot. Remember, no 7-Elevens. No Starbucks. Can you imagine? Like, you are traveling, you need to do a pit stop all the time to do something, and always like snacking, drinking the coffee mug. But Jesus didn't have any of this, and he was traveling. They got to a certain point in Samaria, and he said to the disciples, say, go, you can go find. I know you guys are hungry, so you needed to go find food and ask for people, because remember, no hotels, right? When they came back, they brought him fruits, and a few things to share. And he said, don't worry. But Master, you're hungry. It's in the dialogue. And he said, don't worry. I know a different way to nourish myself with the Father. And we're still like, recipe, please. That's the diet we need to do. That's the breakthrough of all diets. What's that? And then he says, when he fulfills God's will, there's no anxiety, because you're one with God. You're aligned, you're in harmony, you're not guilty. You don't need to. Yeah. So this is Jesus' diet, okay? But we could study much more. We're just teasing our brains with some of the teachings. We could go deeper and deeper and deeper. As a medium, says Kardec, if we consider him a medium, Kardec says if he received a different input, it could only be from God. He was not a medium of any other spirit. He was a medium of God, directly. And when we see the transfiguration at the Mount, when through his mediumistic abilities, the spirits manifest, one of them being Elijah, he's not being the medium of theirs, but he's being the intermediary of God for that phenomenon to be seen also by the people and be told to us. It's a natural phenomenon. Many people think of mediumship as something like that is still in the realm of the supernatural, but in the Medium's book, chapter 1, Kardec says, it's not supernatural, it's just in the order of the events of nature. We need to cut the mystic part of it all and work with it as we work with intelligence. We send our kids to school. We went to school to study about how to use our intellectual intelligence, but we also need to learn about our mediumship, because we're all mediums at some point, and know what to do with it. Not to come and receive messages and be mystics and get to... No, no, no. It's really to be good intermediaries of on high wherever we are. At work, at home, in the streets, with ourselves alone. When he heals, as a healer, bringing the energies directly from above. But he was also a psychotherapist. Interesting enough, Dr. Wolf and I forgot his name, from California. You remember, right, Carlos, when we met the doctor from California, we brought him to Kardec Radio and also a Spiritist symposium. Forgive me, just occurred to me. As a psychotherapist, he wrote a book about Jesus' psychotherapeutic skills. You remember, John? I think it was way back when at Kardec Radio. And I will recall, Mark Baker. Yeah, we even brought him in 2014 to an event with Divaldo Franco in Maryland. And he gave a talk on his book and his view of Jesus as the best psychotherapist. Therapist in the way of healing, serving, waiting upon. And as he said, it is not the healthy who need the doctor, but the sick, as in Matthew 9:12. So he could understand people, for example, the blind man. The blind man. The blind man would be here. And Jesus was not a magician that would say, shh, ta-da, you're healed. No. He would work from within. So he often asked, what do you want that I do for you? Why are you here? What are you here for? And this is very important. Because some people, though they are blind, they don't want to see. They want $1 million. You know, like Aladdin, the lamp. Shh. And you're like, no, I don't want to get healed from this, but send me to Hawaii and have the ultimate party. I don't care if I die tomorrow, as long as I have that party. And $1 million. And this and that and that. There are people who are like this, they don't care. We think everybody wants to be healed? No. Not yet. How many people saw Jesus and didn't get healed? Because of him? No. Because they didn't want to. They're like, forgive that person? No, I'm not going to forgive that person. No, but you need that to be healed. No. Impossible. So there are rules of engagement they didn't want to abide. And often in the dialogues, Jesus would say, I remember Daisy explaining this in the seminars of healing of the Genesis in Richmond, and then here, the miracle, right? The passage in which he heals the blind man, and he says that he needs to do what? Get out of the village. And what is this village? Change your mental mindset. You have to change it. Some people get healed and they go back to the same habits that generated the illnesses. It goes back. So he was a therapist. In each dialogue, when you read this, when you go to the Genesis, read the miracles. Because the passages go there and Kardec says, you see how Jesus talks to this person. It's very therapeutic also for us. Teaching us the deep healing, which is not just of the body. Because the healing of the physical body is just a natural consequence. That's not a goal. Because the real life is not here. When we discarnate tomorrow, if it's of natural causes, we shouldn't be sad like, oh, Oh my gosh, it's a disaster. This week I saw some people lamenting that a famous singer discarnated. Like, oh my gosh, she made us so happy. But you're a spiritist. How are we going to lament if she graduated? Especially after going through cancer. You wanted to stay here. For what? To entertain our senses and pleasures? You say, God bless you, go. Thank you. Next. If you graduate, you don't linger there saying, oh. Say, it was great, blessed, next. What's next now? We need to learn how to be detached. Our attachments are very detrimental to us. And Jesus was the model of detachment. Detach sometimes of our expectations. Sometimes we want certain relationships to be this way. I will only be happy if. But God is saying, please be detached. Be happy just because. Because that relationship shouldn't be the reason why you're happy or unhappy. The day my family, my children, my boss, my colleagues, everybody, then I'll be super happy. They are thinking the same. Probably. But Jesus came and said, love God above all things. We have God, the ultimate happiness. He loves us unconditionally. That should suffice. That's what Jesus taught us. And when he heals and brings Lazarus, or when he heals the man who was obsessed, showing to us he was given another chance. At the end of the day, Jesus is for us the most perfect model of humanity. When Kardec, and let me get the Spirit's book, 1 second. And I will purposefully, because I remember one or two answers, but not all. It starts in question 621, which is all about the laws. 621, and this is important for us. Part 3, the moral laws. We need to understand the laws, not to get citations, not to go to prison, right? Like, oh, really? Right? I need to know. And even for Spiritists, Andrea Lewis, in the book Among Brothers of Other Lands, publishes chapter 1. Basic points for Spiritists who are traveling. Number 1, get to know of the laws of the place that you're visiting and abide to them. So we can't go places and not know. If I'm traveling elsewhere, I need to know the customs, the laws, to be fitting and not to transgress. So he's talking about the laws, which are the laws of God. It is the only law that is truly necessary for human beings to be happy. So we have to know. I want to be happy. Read at least this part of the book. It's not even that much. It's like here, it's just this. Oh, you don't want to read or can't because I know we're so busy. Listen to it. John DeRosa worked for 3 years, for God's sake, right? 3 years with Steve Shepard, and it's there, the audiobook at Kardec Radio's website, kardecradio.com, or SoundCloud. Now it's in Spotify. Can you believe it? Spotify, go there. Boom, it opens. You listen. Question 614, and it's on demand. And then there's a moment in which Kardec says, okay, so where is this God law written? Many people expect in the Bible. No. Thank God. The Bible is precious. It's a super book. But it doesn't have anything. revealed to them. Why don't we just know? They have and disregarded it. Like, yeah, I know, yeah, I know, but not now. God has willed for them to be reminded. God is loving. How many people get promoted at the expense of lots of gossiping? Many. Will they have a good aging time? No. You can tell when you look, and you can see that person who is elderly or getting older and can look at people in the eyes. Really going on problems, facing people, talking to people, and having several issues because we are there's a price, and we'll pay for the price. A lot of Alzheimer's going on because people really want to forget the choices they made. Forget because it's heavy, it's hard. We planted in this life. Make a mistake out of being fragile. We're afraid, right? Afraid of not being loved and approved. And then we make the day. I remember this person was a spiritist. Her husband was a successful journalist. And they had these big cars, cars that people like a Maserati and stuff like how people treat us differently when we drive these cars. Okay. Learn that the external appearance will get the appreciation. Teach this child. It's deceiving. Because you're not better just because they appreciate your coat or your car, but we think we do. And we keep investing there. Until we realize we don't need it, and that's Jesus. Doesn't matter. He was born at a manger in a stable. God sent me here. And people are like, what? And sent you to be born in a manger? Like in a stable? What God is that? Many people ask, like, he's crazy. Like, what? God wouldn't do this. But today we believe it. He didn't have the titles, family, not even a house. Where was Jesus' house? Nobody knows because he didn't have a house. Thank God, because how can we imitate somebody that has a house? Not everybody can buy a house and have their own house. So it's an easy model to follow because he didn't have a profession that is hard. I mean, it can be hard for me to be a carpenter, but if you apply yourself, you don't need to do a PhD in carpentry to be a carpenter. I mean, a good one, yes. Yes, but you know what I mean. You don't need to do high level education for this. It's beautiful work, but he's showing to us that it's reachable, it's tangible. He's saying what matters is that we care. And that's why he also volunteered to be one of the spirits to build our planet. These are the 2 paragraphs that Emmanuel wrote in the book On the Way to the Light. You want to read it for us, please, John? The 2 paragraphs, please.
The traditions of the spiritual world tell that in the guidance of all phenomena in our solar system, there is a community of pure spirits selected by the Supreme Lord of the universe. In their hands reside the directing guidelines of life on all the planets. That community of angelic and perfect beings, of which Jesus is one of its members, and already met twice in the proximities of the earth for the solution of decisive issues in the organization and the direction of life.
So, in that community of angelic and perfect beings, of which Jesus is one of its members. One. And then Kardec in the Spirit's book, thank you, John, in the Spirit's book, in a footnote, he reveals to us that stars are meeting point of pure spirits, and that the rays of the light are byproduct of their loving thoughts. You love, that's why we say that person's so warm, literally. We will gravitate to being like that. We are marching towards, that's why on the way to the light, we're marching towards the light. Because we are light, we just need to let it shine. And Jesus is one of them. And if we ask, what do? I think of all things he's done and said, the loving message is in the Beatitude, summarize it all. But we need to contextualize. Nowadays, we're compassionate towards the poor and the sick more than we were then. Then, if you were poor, you're out of society. If you're sick, you're out. There weren't hospitals at the time. Hospital, says Emmanuel in a book named Consoler, is a thing of the Christ. After Jesus, we start, let's help those who are sick. Before, we're just like, oh, there's nothing we can do, go away. And a group, the Valley of the Lepers. And people were put aside. Nowadays, we say, okay, we're going to create an organization to take care. That only happened because of Jesus. Now we take care of the poor. We still have to do more. But that's something that he said we should do. Because to be poor doesn't mean you're being punished. There are many people who are very wealthy and they are going through the most difficult tests of self-control and being charitable, not being selfish. Because the money, you get an extra coin and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy that thing that I dreamt of. And there are people who need in other ways and we forgot about them. And sometimes those people are in our family. Look at our children. Christmas is coming and they're like, oh, my Santa list. Okay. Have you thought about the children that have nothing first? Santa's not going to bring you anything if you don't give it to other children. Because he's going to say, you have a lot of toys already. You need to think of others first. Or Santa's not going to bring you toys. Because he's Jesus' friend and worker. He only does what Jesus says. And Jesus wants you to help the planet. By accumulating more, you're not helping. The peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. We are approximating, coming close to reunion of family, the holiday season. And sometimes we know precisely what's happening. We could put a word and end the crisis, but we don't, because we want to be good. We want people to look at us and think, that person is my friend. But then I don't care that they are not friends of one another. Sacrificing our friendship to say, I think you should reconsider the way you do this. Because I am your friend, I think you should reconsider what you're doing. Because I love you. If I were you, I would reconcile. Let go of these grudges. We could put a word and end the crisis, but we don't. Because we're afraid of the consequences towards our ego. And then we just watch the struggle, like has nothing to do with me. Pontius Pilate did the same. He didn't want to be bad to the Pharisees or the Roman Empire, so he washed his hands. And we're playing Pontius Pilate. That's not peacemaking. If he had risked and said, you know what, this man had done nothing, he said it. I'm sorry. If the Pharisees upset or it starts a war, so be it, because it's wrong. He didn't. He washed his hand. Many people played a role. He had his. He didn't take it. We have ours. And being a peacemaker is part of being divine, Son of God, child of God. Blessed are the gentle. The gospel, the virgin, according to Spirit. In this planetary transition, those who are non-violent, if to make money, I put the climate to challenge, I won't stay on this planet. So we're seeing many people that pretty soon are going to take a spaceship and are going to they want to dominate. They want to do what they got to do just to be number one. Is what we see. Many people know the hardship. To people in the things that Teflon. And it's so easy. We just need to abide and follow through. Oh, Vanessa, I want to live in that house. And to live in that house, I need to pay high mortgage. I need to have that job. Okay, you can. And then the consequences. Because of the conscience and the choices we make. And we don't need big decisions. Our children tonight are watching an episode of a cartoon. It says a small error may make the building fall apart. We're not talking about big decisions, small ones when we wake up. Good morning, bonjour, whatever we want to say, happily. Not as if we're dragged and already contaminating people with bad mood. We go to sleep feeling great that we made that day. We don't know if we're going to wake up. There's no guarantee. Nothing guarantees we're going to wake up the next day. We may not. So thank you, God. For this day, I revisit and I say, oh my, these are the things. And we need to tell our children. and they like, I don't know. Or like a child I heard the other day, oh, but my teacher said I shouldn't. I said, I'm sorry for the argument, but because enjoy childhood eating candy. And she laughed and said, you know. So we rejoice, as Jesus said. Amen. That we downloaded not from the spiritual realm. One day we want to see that. But here we are. That's how we're going to wrap up. Hearing him say the Beatitudes. Let us just open this.
Blessed are ye, when men shall revile you, and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely, for my sake. Rejoice, and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost his savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle, and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
Okay, as we dim the lights, I'm going to play once again as we prepare for the passes, okay? And I'm going to put caption here to make sure that a little bit difficult.
Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not but to fulfill. Is passed from the law till all be fulfilled. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. Resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee turn thou not away. Ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor. You love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he For if you love them which love you, what reward have And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect.
Watch more, friends.